And there were so many people here waiting for the rice noodle. Well, soon we will have a busy hour because it's noontime. Many people are waiting to have their lunch. I could already feel the aroma. You could see the chopped spring onion. Let's put the braised egg inside of the noodle. Well, I would like to show all of you the noodles. So this is the noodle. This is the braised pork. You see there were so many ingredients. We have many toppings on the noodle. So I would like to ask a question for the owner. When did you start to make noodles? Well, actually, like tens of years ago, there were many people come to Guiyang, especially we have some people coming to Guiyang from Hunan and coming from Hubei province. At that time, I feel the noodles are very delicious and also made some renovations and localized the Hunan noodle. So I started the shop at about like 1987. Actually, the owner is talking about the history of the noodle. So during the anti-Japanese wars, and there were many people come to Guiyang and people from Hunan province and Hubei province. I used to have a taste of the Hunan noodle by accident, and I think that is very delicious. And then I made some localization of the Hunan noodle and started my shop in 1987. So right now we have 7 restaurants. So Miss Lee just talked about the history and also talk about her ancestors. So when some people come to Guiyang from Hunan province, and she felt this kind of noodle is very delicious, and she made some renovations of the noodles. And we all know that Guiyang is actually like a base for the anti-Japanese war. And then they started to run some of the shops. And then they're thinking about how to name this restaurant. So they think maybe we could make this shop to serve Hunan people. So that's why we are naming this food stall as a Hunan restaurant. Even though this shop is owned by a Guiyang local, but they really love this kind of Hunan noodle. That's why they used the name, the Hunan noodle shop. But later on, they have changed the name again into the Lilan noodle shop. So actually, a noodle is not the only thing for this dish. And we would love to add more toppings on that. For example, we will put some braised pork and also put some braised tofu inside of the noodle. And it will adding to the flavor of this noodle. And you always talk about that this kind of noodle has maintained the same flavor for many years. Can you talk about that? Well, even though it is just a bowl of rice noodle, but we carefully selected all the ingredients. And we have braised all of those pork for like at least 4 hours. So we believe the soup is very delicious and also the pork is very tender and delicious. And actually we're using the pork bone to braise the soup. And also it takes at least 3 to 4 hours. So for the meat, we are actually braised it for like 4 hours. And also for the soup, it's also very delicious. And for all of those noodles, it is handmade. Well, after we put the noodles inside of the soup, they're able to soak the flavor of the soup. So that's why the noodles taste very delicious. So in the past few years, I believe there were many changes in Guiyang, especially we could see an improvement for people's livelihood. And we felt that right now our people, our residents have very high expectation for the food. That's why we have to keep making improvements for the noodles. So at the beginning, we started the shop in 1987. So it's been 33 years. And for some people, when they first taste the noodle, they're only at early 30s. And right now, they're over 60 years old. So it's not just tasting a bowl of rice noodle. They're actually tasting their memory. So for you, the owner is already like 64 years old, but she continued to do her job in making the noodles, and they're actually always abide by their original aspiration. They really love to cook noodles and serve Guiyang people. So alright, it's time for us to have a taste of the noodle. For locals, at the beginning, they will just taste the noodles, but they really like chili. And you could see there is a bowl of chilies, and then they were adding the chilies inside of the noodle soup. And that's the way how Guiyang local eat the noodle. So actually there were like 3 steps to eat the noodle. So right now you just taste the original flavor in the middle, and then you will adding some of the chilies, and the last step you will put in some vinegar. Well, for myself, I'm not sure I'm follow this kind of steps. So just right at the beginning, I have put the vinegar and the chili inside of the noodle, but still I think it's very delicious. So today we will start off eating the noodle without adding anything. So first we will put in some of the noodles and then some meat. Just want to taste the original flavor of this bowl of rice noodle. So for visitors who came to Guiyang for the first time, so we always want them to add one like pig feet. It is very delicious, and it's the way how Guiyang locals eat the rice noodle. So right now we are still under epidemic prevention and control. Make sure that you follow the regulations locally. So if you're coming to Guiyang from some mid-risk or high-risk regions, make sure that you provide your COVID-19 testing report. So we welcome people around China to come to Guiyang, but make sure that you abide by the regulations of epidemic prevention and control, and make sure you have a safe journey here. Alright, now it's the lunch time. We like to have a taste of the rice noodle. So this is the braised rib. So these are 2 must-adding ingredients into the noodles. We have the braised ribs, and also we have the braised pig feet. Right, we will follow the 3 steps to taste the rice noodle. So right now you could see the owner is already 64 years old, and her daughter is actually the owner for this shop, and she would like to inherit this shop. I would love to run this shop, because I know this shop has been running for like 30 years. So this shop is originally opened in Guiyang, but even though it is a shop in Guiyang, we are cooking the Hunan dishes. So right at the beginning, this kind of rice noodle is not taste like this. I think this kind of rice noodle is different from the Changwang noodle. And I think this rice noodle also represents the friendship between Guiyang and Hunan. I believe for local people in Guiyang, they all know Hunan noodle. But still, if people coming to Guiyang from Hunan province, they will be very confused. Why this kind of Hunan noodle is so popular in Guiyang? So it is quite weird for you to hear that Guiyang is very famous for Hunan noodle. However, this kind of Hunan noodle is developed by generations. So right now there were many locals that are going to work in some large cities like Beijing, Shanghai, and Guangzhou. And when they come back to Guiyang, they would love to visit my shop to have a bowl of rice noodle because they miss this kind of Hunan noodle so much. It is the flavor of their hometown. Indeed, it is very delicious. So now I would like to add in some chilies, even though I was not originally coming from Guiyang City, but I have been living here for many years. So I really love this hot and spicy food. And also maybe you could also add the pickled radish into the noodle soup. It's very delicious. Even though it's very hot for the chilies, but it tastes very good. And when we're eating the noodles, make sure that you also have a bite of the pickled radish. We think the chili is the essence for the food, especially in Guiyang. Some people cannot differentiate the Guizhou dishes versus the Sichuan dishes. I would tell you the Qian cuisine is famous for sour and spicy. Actually, in Guiyang City, it's very moisture for the weather. So we would love to eat sour and spicy food. It can keep us healthy. So for people from Guiyang City, they would like to pick different kinds of chilies to make one dish. So actually, you could see different kinds of chilies in different dishes. You could see this kind of pickled radish is also very delicious and very refreshing. They're also adding some sugar to prickle this kind of radish. I believe in winter, especially if you are feeling very cold, I can feel it's an experience of happiness. And also people would like to come here in late evening to have a bowl of the rice noodle. So sometimes even at 10 p.m. we could see there will be another busy hours for the shop. So many people will come back to this noodle shop. Now you have come to the third step, so you have to add in some of the vinegar to enjoy the noodle. Remember, there were 3 steps to finish the noodle. First, you just taste the original flavor. The second step, putting some chili powder. And the third step, you are putting some vinegar into the noodle, and then you can drink the soup. How's that? Well, even if it's just one bowl of rice noodle, you can have 3 different types of taste. I feel quite warm right now. So I think the delicacies are closely linked to the features of the city. So in Guiyang city, it's quite cold recently. So in the past, when I came back to my hometown, I think it's not that cold because in Guiyang, it's quite moisture in the weather and in the air. So you have to eat some chilies to remove the internal wet and so you can avoid dampness. So always people are talking about start from morning, you could have a breakfast of a Changwang noodle and also you could have a taste of the Hunan rice noodle. So as I'm a foodie broadcaster, so we think like for this shop it's very suitable for us to do the live streaming because it is very delicious. Say for a noodle shop, if they have a very good noodles, it's not the only thing. You have to pay attention to the details in each aspect. And we will take the braised pig feet and also the braised ribs to my colleagues. I believe they are very hungry right now. And for this shop, it has been running for 33 years in Huguo Road of Guiyang City. So it is a time-honored food. Well, actually, my colleagues placed the order for us, but right now they do not have the time to eat the noodle. So back in the 80s, when people talk about the Huguo Road, everyone will think of the Hunan rice noodle. So sometimes when you come here, when you are taking a taxi, you just tell the driver, I'm going to the noodle shop, the Hunan noodle shop in Huguo Road, and then they will take you directly to our shop. Well, this place is well located and also very close to a scenic spot in Guiyang City. So after you complete your sightseeing in Guiyang City, you can come to this Hunan noodle shop. This is actually one of the most famous noodle shop in Guiyang. So in the past, I also visited some of the noodle shops. They're very quite famous. But this time, as I'm doing the live coverage on Qian cuisine, I think I found this one is very amazing. So thank you for your introduction. Now we will move to another food stall. Now you can see right now it's about like 12. It's noontime, and many people are coming here to have their lunch. They are waiting for the rice noodle, the Hunan rice noodle. I feel very warm right now because at the beginning of my live streaming, I feel a little bit cold. After I finish the noodle, I think I'm getting very warm. That's why we all love chili in Guiyang City. So for another food stall next to the Hunan noodle shop, it is the Changwang noodle. Actually, that is a noodle made from the ingredients like the coagulated pig blood and the pork intestine. So we all say for the Hunan rice noodle and the Changwang noodle, they're must-eat delicacies in Guiyang City. So this is the food stall of the Changwang noodle. And for this one, you can see there are also a long queue in front of the stall. We have already placed the order for this Changwang noodle. And for each one of the food stall, they have prepared the pickled radish and the pickled cabbage. At each one of the food stalls, they have different types of the radish and the cabbage. So for this one, it's very famous. It is the quartered hautanier. And for Guiyang locals, they always think we must have the quartered hautanier so that we can protect ourselves. So this is the shop owner for the Changwang noodle shop. So right now it's noontime, we have many people. Well, but I think because of the cold weather, we have fewer people today. So right now it's not a very busy hour. I think the Changwang noodle is quite different from the Hunan noodle. So actually for the noodle itself, I think it is thinner than the Hunan noodle. So we will want to have a taste of the Changwang noodle here. Just one bowl of the Changwang noodle is enough for two of us. So I also visited this noodle in the past and think it's very representative for this kind of Changwang noodle. So if you are a visitor to Guiyang, make sure that you place an order to order the Changwang noodle with spicy chicken. So you could see, actually, the spicy chicken is also very famous in Guiyang. If you order the Changwang noodle with spicy chicken, that would be very delicious. You could have the taste of two ingredients at one time. So as there were many people in the restaurant, we would like to share the table with some of the visitors. Where did you come from? We are coming to Guiyang from Xi'an, and also my friend is coming to this shop from Shanghai. There are many friends recommending these shops. That's why we come to this restaurant. I used to come to this food stall in the past. I think it's very delicious. I didn't add too much chilies, and also I added a little bit of chili oil. So in the past, when I came here, I said I would like to have one bowl of Changwang noodle, but without the chili oil. All right, so we would like to share the table with these visitors. We also want to have one extra bowl to share the Changwang noodle. Now you could see the red chili oil on top of the Changwang noodle. And also for some of the shops, they would like to prepare the toppings on their own. And they're using some crispy, deep-fried fat dregs as the topping. And actually, for the noodles, the coagulated pig blood, and also the pork intestine, all of these ingredients have to be very high standard. For example, for this kind of noodle, it's quite unique in Guiyang. So if you are the visitor coming to Guiyang, if you want to bring some of the souvenir back to your hometown, you could actually bring some of the cooked, crispy, deep-fried fat dregs back home. For some of these Changwang noodle shops, they also provided the deep-fried fat dregs as a gift for the visitors. So I would like to ask some of the questions from the locals. Or maybe I should first have a taste of the noodle. I believe this kind of noodles is quite unique and very elastic. Now you could see they also putting some eggs and also some bean sprouts inside of the noodle. So this can strike a balance of the flavor. And I highly recommend that you add some of the spicy chicken inside of the noodle. That would be very delicious. So for this gentleman, he actually adding some eggs and also the spicy chicken inside of the noodle soup. It's very refreshing and very delicious. And we also don't want to have the Changwang noodle with so much oil that would be very greasy. So that's why we are putting a lot of green bean sprouts inside of the noodle soup. But of course, if you do not like intestines, you can just tell the owner, I just want a bowl of Changwang noodle without the pork intestine. I just want the coagulated pig blood. Well, this is another kind of aroma and taste. It's quite different from the Hunan rice noodle. You cannot feel the flavor of the pork. It's more refreshing because you can feel the aroma and the taste of the bean sprouts. And we always think the essence is actually the deep-fried fat dregs. So you must have a taste of these crispy fat dregs. So actually the crispy fat dregs, once again, is the essence for the noodle. You could actually sometimes just taste those fat dregs as a snack. You could watch TV and also have some taste of the deep-fried fat dregs. So the reason why we are choosing noontime as our time to do the live streaming, because in the afternoon we just want to digest all of this food. So actually in my house, I already bought some of the deep-fried fat dregs. If you do not want to cook dinner, maybe I could just prepare the noodles and also adding some of the crispy deep-fried fat dregs. That would be very convenient for us. So we recommend if you are a visitor coming to Guiyang City, make sure that you bring back the crispy fat dregs to your friends. It's a perfect gift. And also the red chili oil is very delicious. Maybe we could have a sip of the soup. Well, I would say it is very refreshing. It's not greasy. Right, our chef is here. I would like to have the chef to tell us more about the noodle. Please have a seat. So take a look at this one. So this bowl of noodle has adding the toppings, the spicy chicken. And actually we have made some improvements for the noodle. So we started to make this kind of food back in Ming Dynasty or Qing Dynasty. As back in that time, in Guiyang City, they started to make the Changwang noodle. And right at the beginning, they are adding the pork intestine into the noodle. And this kind of noodle has been existing for over 100 years. So the unique feature for the Changwang noodle is that we have to prepare all of the ingredients on our own, including the noodle itself. And for the noodles, we are making all of those noodles manually, and also we have to deep fry all of those fat dregs. And also we are approved with we're getting approval as the inheritors of the Changwang noodle. And Changwang noodle is one of the intangible cultural heritage in China. For all of the ingredients for this bowl of Changwang noodle, we actually prepare all of those ingredients on our own. So for this kind of noodle, can you tell us the procedures how to make this egg noodle? Well, we have flour, we have eggs, and also we have duck eggs added into the noodle. Also we have wheat and alkalines. This is the alkaline noodles, so that's why this kind of Changwang noodle is quite different from other kind of noodles. So I believe our restaurant is the only one to make alkaline noodles like this. So that's why we have a special cooking skill. So that's why we are gaining the award of the intangible cultural heritage. And also for the red chili oil is also prepared by our own. So I think it's a very complex procedures for us to prepare one bowl of the Changwang noodle. So I believe you have 6 generations for this restaurant. Well, we have only 4 generations to run the shop. So we also witness the changes of the Guiyang city, and we also relocate our restaurant in different places. So right now we are actually the 4th generations to make the noodle. But the noodle itself has been existing for about 100 years. So we have made some renovations of the shops, but still the cooking skills remain the same, including the preparation of the deep-fried fat dregs and the preparation of the noodles. We are also using the same kinds of techniques. So even though we have moved our restaurants in different places, but still we are using the same cooking skills to prepare the noodles. So you all know that for the Changwang noodle, it is quite representative. In Guiyang, we do not want to change the aroma and the flavor of the noodle. So I think it is our mission, our responsibility to inherit Changwang noodle. Because when people think about the breakfast, they will always think about Changwang noodle. So that's all the aspiration for the Guiyang locals. So right now, we really want more young people to learn how to make Changwang noodle. We hope this kind of Changwang noodle will pass down. We do not want to lose the passing down of the noodles. Right now, very few people like to learn how to cook the Changwang noodle because it's a very diligent work. We have to wake up at about like 3 or 4 a.m. They were very prestigious. We have to prepare breakfast, and we also have to deep fry the fat dregs. As I've just said, they were quite complicated. For the Changwang noodle, and you prepare the noodle today, and the other day, after the fermentation of the alkaline, and then the noodle will taste much better. And sometimes if we do not have sufficient noodle, then we are not able to sell the noodles. So it takes some time to prepare the noodle. We have to prepare the noodle one day before. So that is the unique part for our Changwang noodle, because for example, the beef rice noodle, if they're running out of the noodles, they could just order the noodle from other shops. But for the Changwang noodle, we have to prepare the noodles like at least 12 hours in advance. So I would like to interview one of the gentlemen, and he actually come to this restaurant from Shenzhen, and it is the second bowl. And this gentleman is a local in Guiyang city, but he worked in Shenzhen for about 20 years. So can you tell us more like the meaning of this Changwang noodle? Well, I think this is one of my memory. Changwang noodle actually represents my hometown. So that's why I love this kind of noodle so much. Well, you could see this gentleman, he has ordered 2 bowls of the Changwang noodle. So also he adding the spicy chicken inside of the Changwang noodle. So one is the Changwang noodle and the other one is the Changwang noodle with the spicy chicken. So I used to taste this kind of Changwang noodle 1 year ago, but it's quite satisfying. So in the past, when you are placing the order and then shouting to each other and passing by the orders. Right now, many people they don't know how to use some special terms to describe the Changwang noodle. In the past, when you came a Changwang noodle shop, when they're trying to pass your orders to the kitchen, they will use special terms to describe the Changwang noodle. And soon we will come to another shop. They are making a special like Guiyang dim sum. And in the past, people would like to eat the noodle together with the dim sum. And then they think maybe it is not that refreshing. That's why they separate the Changwang noodle and with the special Guiyang dim sum. And right now, for young people, they tend to have the Changwang noodle. And we just talk about the inheritance of the Changwang noodle. And I also recommend visitors coming to Guiyang, please come to this Changwang noodle shop and to have a taste of the red chili oil. And I was so touched by what the gentleman had just said, because he came to this shop from Shenzhen. And actually, it reminded me of my childhood and my memory in Guiyang. This is my hometown. And right now, we could see there are many innovative cuisines. And yesterday, I visited one of the vegetarian restaurants. It's very, very innovative. And it is run by the young generations. I also can feel the changes of my hometown. Even though we have some traditional cuisines here, but also we have some innovative cuisines. I'm so touched, especially every time when I come back to my hometown. Yes, indeed, because Guiyang is your hometown. Even though you're working in different cities, once you come back to your hometown, all of the memories will come back to you. So I can feel it's quite warm to come back to your hometown, yes. So I share the same feeling with you because I'm from North. So when coming back to my hometown, I can have the same kind of feeling. So I can feel that this time I lost some of a file and I report to the police. They're quite patient. They're helping me to find the files. I could see it's not just the livelihood have been improved, but also we could see some people are changing their mindset and the whole spirit and livelihood has been improved in Guiyang City. And for this gentleman, he just said every time he came back to Guiyang, he would like to come to this noodle shop because it's his memory. So we are just talking about the hometown, and you can see this gentleman is quite touched. And also he has come up with a lot of feelings. So in the past, I don't tell others I'm coming from Guizhou, but right now it's quite different. When people talking about Guizhou, they will talk about the big data, and also they will talk about a lot of new things, and also the Changwang noodle. So we could see there's a big improvement of the livelihood in Guiyang City. So enjoy your noodle, Mr. Zhao. And just now, Mr. Zhao said that every time he came back to Guiyang from Shenzhen, he will come to this noodle shop. So after he tasted the noodle, and then he will feel he's coming back home. So I think it's quite touching. So especially you're not working at your hometown, so you may have this kind of feeling. So as I used to work for live streaming as a foodie celebrity, I always saw some of the comments from the overseas students. And even though these people, they are not staying in their hometown, but they would like to watch this kind of short videos to talking about their local food and local cuisines, it feels like these people can come back home. So sometimes for all of these gourmet and the food, they're not just food, they're actually carrying a memory, carrying a spirit. So for me, I'm not originally coming here, but I always do some live streaming about the food in Guiyang, and it's been 9 years for me to do this kind of live streaming, and now I'm very familiar with the Guiyang cuisines. And for this restaurant, it's specialized in tofu. And for this shop, it's also quite unique. You could see this shop was founded in 1864, and this shop is run by the family of Lei. So there is a story that in the past, one of the emperor, he's sick, he's not able to eat meat. So that's why the Lei family developed a kind of food to serve the emperor. So even though later on the emperor recovered and he's able to eat some meat, but he is quite impressed by this kind of tofu ball. And that's why this kind of tofu can be passed down by generations. So let's show us how to eat this kind of tofu. So first we have some like dipping sauce, and we will use the chopsticks to break the tofu balls into 2 parts, and we have to fill the tofu ball with the pickled radish and also the quartered hautanier, and then we have to eat the tofu ball with 1 bite. And some people would love to, for example, to put some meat inside of the tofu ball. We just want some traditional taste of the tofu. We would like to maybe just order 2, because we're quite full. We're just finishing like 2 bowls of noodles. We just need 2 of them. How much per one? Like 5 yuan, 5 RMB for 2 tofu balls. You could see the chef, they have to deep fry the tofu, so on the outside it's quite crispy but still tender inside of the tofu. And we have different ways to eat this kind of tofu balls. I think it's better to taste this kind of tofu balls inside of the restaurant. If you taste it like in a takeaway, so that would not be that delicious. 5 RMB for 2 tofu balls. I think they have some special cooking skills to deep fry these tofu balls. They have to manage the temperature of the oil. So all in all, that is to say, for the skin, it is quite crispy, but inside of the tofu is very tender and soft. So maybe we can shake this tofu ball, and you can actually hear this specific sound for this kind of tofu, because it's quite tender inside of the tofu ball. So you can hear the movement of the tofu inside of the balls. When they're cooking this kind of tofu ball, you could actually hear the sound, the sizzling sound of the oil. So that's why people sometimes call this kind of tofu ball as the tofu bell. And for us, maybe we love to just taste the tofu ball directly, because some people may not like the flavor of the cordate haltenier, and some people would like to put in some of the fillings inside of the tofu. Anyway, just we have different types of eating. So we have the rice balls, the tofu balls, and 4 types of tofu balls, and also 4 types of fillings. You could see we have the cordate haltenier, and also maybe we have the shredded kelp, the bean sprouts. So if you did not have any breakfast, you could maybe order several tofu balls. So you could taste the traditional flavor, and also you could have some innovative flavor. So as we just said, for this restaurant was founded in 1864. Last time when I came here, this kind of tofu balls have been passed down for 5 generations. So I believe it requires very high level of cooking skills to deep fry all of these tofu balls. You can see we have a woman here to deep fry all of those tofu balls. So all of these procedures were completed manually, because we need a chef there to check whether the tofu is ready. Well, here we could see there were several steps to make the tofu. So first they have to shape the tofu balls. Very high level of cooking skills. Well, I could see altogether we have 6 steps to prepare the tofu. And as I said, there were different fillings and ingredients. If people do not love the flavor of the cordate haltenier, they could just eat the tofu ball directly without adding any ingredients or adding any fillings. So I could say selection, deep frying, stuffing. So every step requires a high level of cooking skills. So even though it seems like a very simple dish, but you could see these people have dedicated a lot in making all of those cuisines. I would like to show you all of these tofu balls. Well, now I would like to shake the tofu ball to see if I could hear the sound of the movement of the tofu. I'm not sure I can hear the sound. Well, maybe the viewers are not able to hear it, but well, again, this is the tofu bell. So just show us how to eat this tofu ball. So we could use the chopstick to break this tofu ball, and then we will stuff the tofu ball with all of these different fillings and ingredients. Now you could see they have already made some improvements, and I think I would love to filling all of the stuffings by my own. So this is the tofu ball from Lei family. So first I will break the tofu into 2 parts, and then I will put some of the fillings inside of the tofu ball. I believe it's quite hot because it just come out from the oil. It's very crispy on the outside and tender inside. Very delicious. It's very tasty, very crispy outside and very tender inside of the tofu. I can hear the sound of the movement of the tofu inside of the tofu ball. It's quite hot. Very tasty. Even though it is like a deep fried tofu cuisine, but you will not think it is too greasy. See, for this package and this box is very convenient for you to taste the rice ball. Maybe I will pack some of the tofu balls to my colleagues. Let's take a look when we break this tofu, and you could still see it's very tender inside of this tofu ball. So we were adding more pickled radish and the stuffings inside of the tofu ball. Have a taste. We have 2 more restaurants to visit. How do you feel? It's very delicious. How do you feel? Share your thoughts with our viewers. Well, just with one bite, it's a very complex taste. It's very crispy outside and also very tender inside. This is the cameraman, and he has to carry all of this equipment for live streaming. Because we have another colleague, we're not sure where he is. Well, I believe someone do not like the flavor of the cordé haltanier, and maybe he just have the taste of the original tofu ball. Let's take a look. This one is very tender. It's like inside of the tofu ball. Well, actually, the original taste is also very delicious. All right, let's move to another food stall. Thank you very much. Huahua just told us in the Huguo Road there were many time-honored food. We have just visited 3 food stalls, and actually for this Huguo Road there were 2 parts of the Huguo Road. the upper streets and the down streets, we have just passed some of the shops. Some people are selling the Hunan noodle, Changwang noodle, and different types of noodles. And for some of the shops, they're actually run by younger generations. And always I hear some of the comments from the overseas students. They always tell us when they come back to Guiyang city, they would love to have a bowl of the vegetarian noodles. So actually, Lao Ganma, which is a very well-known figure around the world, she also used to sell this kind of veg noodles. But actually, again, the chili pepper plays a key role. So for a younger generation, they actually love the veggie noodles. So noodle is not the major part. You also need to have a very good quality of the chilies. We have carefully selected the shops, and then we have identified one specific food stall that are selling the vegetable noodles. So this is a new generation of noodle shop, but it tastes very good. They're using the Guizhou kettle to prepare the noodle. So in the past, when I visited some of the noodle shops, they are located in small alleys. But this one, you could see it is quite modern. And also in the past few years, there were some changes of the beef noodle. There was some evolution of the beef noodles. And also some people love to eat the mutton rice noodle. As time passes, there were different variety and different types of beef noodles, and each restaurant have their own features. But the noodle itself is the same. We call it the sour and spicy noodle, and it is not available in other parts of China. For this kind of sour noodle, it only belongs to Guiyang city. It is a specially made noodle, and it gone through 3 times of fermentation. So that's why we call this kind of noodle the sour noodle. For this kind of technique, it's not easy to pass them to different places. Well, that's why we think this kind of sour noodle belongs to Guiyang city. We believe your restaurant is quite different from other restaurants. Well, we have to adjust the decoration of the restaurant so that more young generation will love to come to our restaurant. The way we are preparing the noodles, we are actually using the traditional cooking skills, but we have just made some renovations and improvements for the decoration. So we have changed the environment, but still we are sticking to the original way of cooking. So we are using waters, the Guizhou waters to braise the soup. We are also using kettles from Guizhou to prepare the soup stock. So for the soup stock have to be braised for at least 8 hours. We are putting the fresh meat and also the bones together to braise the soup. And also we are adding in some salt inside of the soup stock. So we would say the original soup stock is very fresh and also very delicious. So now you could see we have a very large pot to braise the soup. So it keeps boiling all the time. So at lunch hour, we have a large group of people coming here for lunch. I believe this is a very long queue. We are not sure if we can find a seat in this restaurant. I think some people may want to add in some of the garlic inside of the soup, well, that would be much tasted if you eat the noodle together with the garlic. For this restaurant, you could see if you look at the bowl, we can tell some of the details. So there is a handle on the side of the bowl, so you're able to put your spoon. And also the soup is for free. So if you finish the noodle, you could also ask for an extra bowl of the soup. So actually these two gentlemen coming here from Shenzhen, and they saw this kind of rice noodle on TikTok, and they think this shop is very popular, and then that's why they come here to taste the noodle. So you could see there were two handles around this bowl, so it's just like the shape of a cow. So for this one, it is easier for you to hold this kind of bowl. It will not be that hot. So also you could see there is a gap on the side of this bowl. Actually, that was used to put your chopsticks or your spoon. So actually, we just take a taxi, and the taxi fare is about 30 RMB. But for this bowl of noodle, it's just 12 RMB. Enjoy your time. I believe right now there are so many people queuing in front of this restaurant, so maybe later on we will come back to this restaurant to have a taste. Now you could see there's a large pot. They are boiling all of this soup, and the soup have to be braised for at least 8 hours. And also according to your own taste, you could adding more toppings and the flavors. For example, vinegars or garlic. For me, the journalist, actually, I came from the northern part of China, so I really love to eat garlic. So if I would like to eat this kind of noodle, I would like to adding more garlic. While for this one, you could see this guest asking for a lot of toppings, different parts of the kettle. So for Guiyang local, they would love to eat different parts of the kettle. So I believe many people are very hungry when you are looking at this kind of noodle. So let's continue our journey. We are about to go to the last food stall. So I believe if you talk about Guiyang, you may think of a sour soup. So especially in winter, if you have a big sip of the hot sour soup, you will be very warm. So we have just tasted a lot of spicy food, and then we will like to taste some of the sour food. Well, I believe all of you have heard the music. And this one is also located in the downside of the Huguo Road. So for this restaurant, it's representing the features of the Miao and Dong ethnic minority groups. And all of these people love sour and spicy food. So I believe for this kind of restaurants, for each shop, they have their own cooking skills. So the flavor sour is quite different. And if you are coming from different parts of Guizhou province, probably you will experience different kinds of a sour flavor. By looking at the decoration, you could see it can represent the Miao ethnic group. Also, you could see they're wearing the minority costumes. We can feel the hospitality from the Miao and Dong ethnic group. After we enter inside of the restaurant, you could see a very large pot. So I believe they're actually preparing the sour soup for the sour fish soup. And also there's a saying for Guizhou locals, if you want to stay healthy, you have to eat some sour and spicy food. So I believe this is the shop owner. Please say hi to our viewers. My name is Xiong Jie. I'm the person in charge for the kitchen for this sour fish soup restaurant. I can feel he really loves his hometown. So let's take a look at the sour soup inside of this large pot. So you have to keep boiling this kind of sour soup. Well, we adding some of the fermenting wild tomatoes, and we are waiting for the fermentation, and we are putting all of the ingredients into the large pot. The reason why we keep it boiling is because we want to make sure that all of this sour soup is warm. If we put some of the sour soup outside, and it will be very sour for the soup. So I realized your costumes is actually the traditional clothes costume from Miao ethnic group. And also, as for the decoration for this restaurant, it actually represents the features of the Miao and Dong ethnic group. I actually come from Kaili, from Guizhou province. And for all of these decorations, it's actually imitating the field in the villages. So in my hometown, Kaili is very famous for sour food. For the sour food, especially the sour fish soup, it has been inherited for over 100 years. So I believe it has passed down for several generations. All of my ancestors started to make sour food. So in the past, we do not see so much like sour fish soup in the market. But later on, we're able to find an investor. They really love the sour fish soup. And then this kind of food occupying the market in Guiyang city. Can you tell us how we made this sour soup? As I said, we have used some wild tomatoes, and also we have some fresh chili peppers. And we are putting all of those ingredients together and wait for the fermentation. So even though it tastes sour, but it also tastes very fresh. You could also feel the aroma of the soup. And also it is a little bit sweet. So earlier we found if we eat noodles, we have like 3 steps. But how many steps we have to take before we eat the sour fish soup? Well, when we are cooking the fish, make sure that we have cold soup, because if the soup is too hot, otherwise you're not able to add in the fish. So first you put the fish inside of a cold water, and then after the water boiled, and the fish will be very tender and very delicious. So I believe Hua Hua, our foodie live streamer, she will be very familiar with the sour fish soup. So what do you think about this type of sour fish soup? As you said, for Guizhou locals, they are focusing on the flavors, the sour flavor. Yes, if you're living in different places in Guizhou province, so I think for this sour fish soup, it's representing the sour flavor from Kaili city. And all of these dishes, maybe they're representing the features of Kaili. For example, they love the taste of the wild tomatoes. And also they have the linseed oil. And also very famous rice tofu. That is to say, you're not just like eating the fish, you have to taste some of the appetizers. So for our restaurant, we are focusing on the sour fish soup, and also we are focusing on some of very traditional Guizhou dishes. Once again, we saw the pork feet. So not just like inheriting the sour fish soup, they're also focusing on the improvement for some local Guizhou dishes. And also we are preparing the preserved meat. We all prepared and pickled all of those meat on our own. It's a very nice combination of the different ingredients. So the main dish is the sour fish soup. Well, right now, if you are going to visit the Miao village, I believe the sour fish soup is also famous among Miao people. Now we could see in the city center we have this kind of restaurants, so you could actually experience the Miao cuisines in the city. So we used to visit some of the households in the villages and in the ethnic groups. So sometimes we are able to taste the sour fish soup. We are able to taste the glutinous rice wine. And also this one is very famous, is the spicy chicken. I also recommend if you are going to visit Guiyang, make sure that you taste the sour fish soup and also the preserved meat. So for this preserved meat, you could see they're adding in 4 different ingredients to prepare this dish. That's why you could see by looking at the spicy chicken, it's a perfect combination of color, aroma, and taste. Wow, so this is the tofu ball. In different restaurants, you could find these kind of tofu balls as an appetizer. Now you could see this local snacks has been adding into a formal dish into a restaurant. It's not just a street food. And also for the spicy chicken, in some of the restaurants you also can buy some semi-products from all of those restaurants. And also people can buy some of the braised pig feet as the souvenir. So right now for all of those shops, they're trying to preserving the traditional flavor of those food. At the same time, they're making some innovations of those food and to make it adapt to the taste of the new generations. So first, we would like to take a sip of the sour soup and to stay healthy. So first, we will have a taste of the sour soup. So always we have a saying in Guizhou, if you do not sip the sour soup for 3 days, and then you will be very weak. It's very fresh, and also I could taste a little bit of a sweet for the sour soup. Is it coming from the wild tomato? Well, actually, for all of this soup is actually come after the fermentation of the rice flour. So the sweetness is actually coming out from the rice flour. When we are tasting the sour food in Guizhou, actually I love the taste of the litsi. And some people may not love the flavor of the litsi, but after a while you may get used to it. If we adding the litsi oil into the sour soup, it will help to improve the flavor. Well, I can tell this time when we are visiting this restaurant, the fermentation room is much improved. It has a very good hygiene conditions. And also we have the sugar glutinous rice cake and we are also adding in some honey on top of those cakes. So as a shop owner, I believe you're very young, and we have been staying in Guizhou for over 10 years, and also I can feel some changes in Miao ethnic groups. So can you tell us some of the changes of your hometown? In the past, when we are living in the village, we don't know how to make good use of the food or the techniques that has been passed down by our ancestors. So right now we are able to bring the sour fish soup into the city. We have opened up our market and we can run a business with all of those traditional techniques. And in the past, when we are talking about the sour soup, we can only have a taste of those soups in Miao or Dong ethnic groups, and that only belongs to the villages. So we are not able to taste all of those food in the city. And actually, right now, all of these techniques have become a tool for the poverty alleviation for the Miao and Dong ethnic groups. So they're not only limited to the mountainous areas. So now I would like to have a taste of the preserved meat. So for this preserved meat, how long it takes for the smoking period? So first, we kill the pig and then we preserve all of those meat. And it takes some time, at least a few days, for the preservation of the pigs. And then we start to smoke all of those preserved meat. It seems we have some fat with those meat, but I believe it is quite refreshing for the taste. So for this kind of preserved meat, it have to be smoked for some time. For some ethnic groups, they would love to preserve this meat for at least 1 month. So this is quite different. If you buy a preserved meat from the market, maybe it is quite greasy. So when I come back to my hometown, I think some people, they're not getting used to the flavor of the meat because they think it is quite smoky. But right now, they're getting used to it. They think the smoky flavor is actually the key, the essence for this kind of food. Well, I would like to have another bowl of the sour soup and to stay healthy. So I would like to show you what is the litsi. So this is the litsi. This is actually the essence for the sour soup. This is also a wild ingredient. Well, it's very comfortable to drink this sour soup. And today we are trying to find out the delicious Guizhou dishes. So for some of those cuisines, it represents the memory. Also, some of the cuisines are very delicious. While we are tasting all of those food, we can think of our hometown. I still remember today we met Mr. Zhao, the one who came back to Guiyang from Shenzhen. And he always said, after I have a local dish, then I can feel I'm coming back home. And dear viewers, which one is your favorite? Please leave a comment. Also, you can also share the stories of your hometown. In the end, we are coming to the end of our live streaming. So once again, make sure you sip the sour soup and stay healthy. To our ancestors, to the intangible cultural heritage. Drink the sour soup, stay healthy. May all of you healthy in the new year. And make sure you share your winters, you share your stories of your local cuisines in winter. Thank you.